Could have used that yesterday.
I'm sorry, I can't. We can go back to the future.
Can't go back to the future.
If I could, I would.
All right. Well, first of all, I would think that this bill would do nothing to address your concerns, since it will result in no temperature changes because China and other developing nations refuse to accept binding emission targets to keep carbon below any amount. But let's go ahead. Since I'm also in the heartland in the Midwest, I'd like to have both of you respond to this, because I've seen the same charts. I've seen how we're going to be treated. Oklahoma is right between you guys. So would you like to, can you help me understand why we still believe that our costs would be greater? Well, first of all, let me say to you, Commissioner, I just left your Senator Thune. He said to say hello, and it's good to see you, Mr. Hart, over in Arkansas.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. I do want to make it clear that regional disparities are some of the things that bother us the most. No one on this panel has argued for inaction. No one on this panel has said that carbon shouldn't come with some price. The concerns that have been raised have been primarily around regional disparities. And I do think that's a big problem. And when we start talking about a postage stamp a day, or when we talk about $100 a year, those are national numbers. And I think they gloss over the very real and the very problematic regional disparities. You know, $5 from South Dakotans, I don't believe it. Most of that analysis has been done on flawed presumptions that the energy that is created in South Dakota is used in South Dakota. The federal government has not allowed us to do that. We have a lot of hydroelectric facilities in South Dakota. 80% of that power leaves the state. And so all of the numbers I've seen about South Dakota are based on some very, very flawed assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Any comment, Mr. Hart?
Senator, in Missouri, I mean, that's why, because there's all these different studies. The people that live in Missouri wanted to know from the people generating kilowatt hours, whether it's wind farms, nuclear, natural gas, hydro, they wanted their professionals, the men and women generating kilowatt hours, to tell them, this is what's going to cost us. Now, the numbers I see under the different scenarios, one was $25 a ton for carbon, another one was $50 a ton for carbon. Mm-hmm. Various assumptions they made in different cases, but the rate increases, you're talking like 42 to 77%.
Mm-hmm.
And
the example used this morning,
those are people that are generating the kilowatt hours every day. And I guess the regional disparity is what the people that live in Missouri are keying in on too. They're telling all of us that they don't understand why utilities in California get 100% allocation of emissions and Missouri gets 68.
Yeah, let's keep in mind, too, that the costs that are going to be, now, you're from the state of Missouri. We've heard your Senator Kip Bond talk about how much it's going to cost the farmers, but there are other costs other than what we're talking about today. We're talking about the cost of fertilizer. We're talking about the cost of all these things that affect. Of course, we'll have that panel tomorrow. Let me ask you, Commissioner Johnson, you said in your statement, I'm going to quote it here, the chairman's mark includes a reserve fund with a soft collar, but this mechanism will not do enough to protect consumers. Could you explain that to me?
I think the real concern you see in all of this modeling is when you get an allowance price that climbs up higher than what a lot of us plug into our studies, $15 or $20. That's where I think the real fear comes in, Madam Chairman, and I understand that. I think some people are looking for some level of confidence that even if things get bad, consumers are not going to take the brunt of it, particularly Midwestern consumers. And I understand what the reserve, the strategic reserve is supposed to do. I read a number of economic analyses on it that indicate perhaps it will not be as successful as we all hope that it will be. It just seems to me that some sort of a hard collar would give us more confidence that at the end of the day, the burden is not falling too squarely on the backs of Midwestern consumers.
All right. Well, Commissioner, also, I don't recall just in what context you used the term $250 million. Now, what was that? Would you repeat that sentence for me?
Almost every single load-serving entity in South Dakota that has performed an analysis indicates that in the short term, utility prices would rise 25% in South Dakota. We spend $1 billion a year on natural gas and electricity in South Dakota. I'm not a mathematician, but I take $1 billion times 25% and I get $250 million a year. I think that shows why talking about a postage stamp a day or $100 a year may make sense for our country. Maybe for the country, the costs are reasonable, but there are regional disparities that essentially punish some parts of this country far more than they can afford to be punished.
Well, when you said that, I didn't do the math because I figured you already had it, but you only have, what, 800,000 people?
We have only 800,000 people, just over 300,000 households, and it ends up being a big-ticket item.
Okay, yeah, so you've done your math on the household, 300,000.
It's $850 a year.
Well, see, this is the problem that we have, because we've seen these analysis way back to and including the treaty this all started 10 years ago, the Kyoto Treaty. And all the way through that and through the 03 bill, the McCain-Lieberman bill, the 05 bill, the Warner-Lieberman bill in 08, all these analyses done by MIT, by all these other groups, they come in this same consistent pattern. It does hit the heartland more, but the cost, we're talking about somewhere between $300 and $400 billion a year. And that's huge. And I say it affects different parts of the country in a different way. Mr. Hart, you said in your opening statement, I wrote this down, you said that you have a 91% customer satisfaction rate. Are you proud of that?
We're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, you should be.
We do what our consumers tell us to do.
Okay, what do you think?
They're supporting our wind development in the state. They like what we're doing there.
What do you think would happen to that 91% if you end up having to have this increase that we're talking about?
I'm not sure. I think it's going to go downward.
Yeah, I would think so.
Here's another thing. I think whatever policy that's developed, it's got to have the support of the consumers. It really does. Whether you live in Missouri or Iowa or Arkansas or California or New York, we've got to get the people of this country that love their country to support the policy. Here's another problem. This is a tough pill for Missourians to swallow. The last power plant, baseload power plant we built in Missouri came online in 1983. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I've done a lot of research on this, what was going on in 83, but it was after the Arab oil embargo. Our country was wanting us to get away from foreign dependence on other countries. We couldn't generate electricity with gas. That wasn't on the table because there was a federal law that was passed that said you couldn't generate electricity with oil or gas. We were going to build, our primary project we wanted to build was a nuclear project in the region. We had all the financing put together. We had invested $80 million in site development. We submitted our license to the NRC, our members did. A week after we submitted the license, the moratorium was put on nuclear licensing. So now nuclear is not an option to our members. Now this is 26 years ago. Our only option in Missouri was coal. Mm-hmm. And the federal policy at that point in time in the history of this country was encouraging consumers to go with coal.
Well,
and so now 26 years later for our consumers to feel like because they live in Missouri, they're going to be penalized. It's a tough pill to swallow.
The problem is not are there resources out there, because as I've said in the last two panels that just recently it's been documented that we are #1 in terms of our resources, our reserves, I should say, in coal, gas, and oil. It's a matter of the 83% of that is off limits. As you point out, moratoria are killing us. If we really want to wean ourselves off of foreign oil, let's go ahead and develop our resources that we have here. Madam President, my time has expired, but I have 2 letters for the record to submit. First is from the American Public Power Association, the association that is represented here, although not necessarily the whole association. The second is a statement from the Public Service Commission of North Dakota outlining their concerns.
Thank you very much.